2 of the potential final 3 games of this series will be held at Canada Life Centre. And that is 3 things you need to pay attention to, brought to you by UBS Financial Services, Inc. And now our conversation with John Davidson.
What a pleasure it is to have John Davidson back on our NHL Wraparound. John, you were so good to be on our 94 special. And by the way, people love that. They just love that 94 special about the 94 team. And you and Glen Healy started that whole thing off for us at the very beginning and went through the regular season. It was really cathartic for a lot of people.
Well, one thing about Heels, he can talk the wheels off a greyhound. So that's always fun to listen to him. He's got a great sense of humor and a great mind. For me, it was great just to jog the memory and bring things back. It was a very special time. You know, as you move along in life, you tend to sometimes forget about what's happened. And when you have a chance again to jog the memory, it's fantastic. It makes your day is what it does.
It's funny because on a side note, we had Paul Maurice on the show on the trade deadline. And believe it or not, we told him, Paul, are you sure you want to go on? It's a trade deadline. He goes, yeah, no problem. He says, we'll have had our meetings. So he gets on. And the theme of the interview with him was we sort of walked him back through how he started, back being with Carmanis, with the Windsor Spitfires and on, and how they made him the coach. And you'll laugh at this. So all of a sudden he says, he goes, oh, guys, I got to just run for a minute here. He says, I'll be right back. And he came back. And of course, that's when they called him in to tell him they were trading for Marchand right during the podcast.
Yeah, that's wild. That, you just don't know. I'm happy for Paul Maurice. He's always been a really good person. And I remember when I was in St. Louis and we were trying to make a trade, and I knew that he had known the players from coaching him, those players previously. I made a call and he was very, very helpful. You know what it's like, Neil. Sometimes you just got to make calls to the people you know around the league to try to get some good information. And sometimes the information isn't good, so that helps your decision. But I'm happy for Paul. He really looked at one point, probably at the end of the run in Winnipeg, that he was out of gas. But he's been revived and he looks happy. And I mean, what's not to enjoy in Florida with that team? But it's nice to see a guy that's been around the block when you look at him on the bench or you listen to him talk, and he's got it back. It's good stuff. It's really good stuff.
And what's really good about Paul Maurice is, I think a lot of us felt when he left Winnipeg that this might be it for him, because he sort of said, like, okay, I've done everything I can do with this group. And then it was very critical of Florida for bringing him in as coach. I remember that. We had him on and he admitted that, yeah, they got a lot of criticism when they hired Paul as a coach at the beginning, but I'm really happy for him as well.
Yeah, it's interesting for people that are the critics, that critique things. They know lots, but they don't know it all. It's impossible to be behind closed doors and understand exactly what's happened, what's gone on, why did it work, why did it not work. Sometimes there's a life expectancy with a coach in a certain city, and it dries up, it runs out. That doesn't mean you're a bad coach. That's just the way human nature works. And Paul's been a good communicator. I'm just happy for the guy that he's enjoying his life. They've won. He's got a little extra jump in the step, which is really cool.
I want to ask you about the St. Louis Blues, because you mentioned them before, and I got to remind everybody out there that you were originally a St. Louis Blues goaltender before getting traded to the Rangers, and you were also the president of the Blues a number of years ago. We had Doug Armstrong on here early in the season. We talked to him about the thought process going forward. Then I think I happened to be at the Drew Bannister's last game because Jim Montgomery had just been let go. St. Louis was at UBS Arena, so there's a lot there, John, from me. But what do you make of this Blues team that's now tied 2-2 in the playoffs when they were a team that wasn't expected to make it even?
Yeah, I think there's two general managers out there that have done a really good job this year in addressing their teams and not being afraid to make deals during the season to put them forward. One is Chris McFarland, who worked for us in Columbus a few years ago. I really like Chris. I think he's a brilliant guy. He's a lawyer. He loves and understands the history of the game. He gets on the road and he goes and looks. And the moves he's made, I mean, they've done a nice job to retool the team during the season. That's a hard thing to do. With Doug in St. Louis, same thing. He's done a lot of work during the season to understand his team where they were. And I think, and he has said it, they were right on the edge. Am I going to just think trade deadline and look to the future, make some deals, get some picks, whatever? Or am I going to try to get this going? And I guess the biggest move was Montgomery, the coach. And with his coaching, they've changed their style on the ice, and it's really been appreciated by the players. When I was in St. Louis, Larry Pleau and I were the ones that hired Doug. That's many years ago. And Doug's always had an edge to him, too. He's a nice man. He understands business, and he has no fear in making decisions and making changes because that's business. And he's done a nice job there. I mean, they've obviously won a cup. One thing I was really happy with in my own way is that when they won the cup and they beat Boston in Game 7, 20 of the players that dressed that night, 10 of the players we brought in when I was with the Blues. You got to go. And Doug actually said it to me one day. He says, you know what? It's interesting. Somebody plants the trees and somebody else enjoys the shade. And it's factual in a lot of ways. You go through 2, 3, 4 years of battle, of trying to draft. And then you got to wait while these guys develop. And man, does it take time. And when it takes time to do that, everybody around you loses their minds because it takes a long time. And I think I could say the same thing about Columbus. That team's coming, and it's going to be a good team. It was well coached this year. Don Waddell made some good moves, but all those young players were the ones we drafted and developed. And to see the Marchenkos and the Fantillis and the Mateychuks and the Kent Johnsons and more and more and more that are popping right now, which I find interesting is they're all popping primarily at the same time. So I sit back and I look at that and I go, you know what? Damn right. I'm so happy for those guys. They're good players. They're good. Well, they were kids when we drafted them, but it gives you self-satisfaction for sure.
When you talk about your team in Columbus now, and you see that Montreal is certainly giving Washington Capitals all that they can handle, and that you get nosed out literally the last day of the season. And after everything that the franchise has been through going back to last August, do you look at that series in particular and say, boy, what might have been? Because you had 2 big wins over Washington at the end of the regular season. You went in on a 6-game winning streak to wrap up the campaign. And what could have been?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. We think about it all the time. I remember one season we were tied with Minnesota after the season, and they had more wins. So they beat us the tiebreaker. That was really frustrating. This one here is frustrating in the fact that we didn't get there, and Montreal had a real good, strong close to their season. Credit to them. And we had a couple of weeks prior where we weren't very good. We weren't scoring for some reason, and this and that. But I think when you analyze it after all the disappointment, we're in good position. Columbus Blue Jackets are in good shape right now. They've got scoring talent. There's 2 or 3 areas that needs to be shored up, and Don Waddell's working at that. But I really think there's genuine room for optimism. When you look at a couple of moves, Fabro was picked up on waivers. He fit with Werenski. Werenski had his best season. He's a top 3 defenseman in this game for sure. When you look at what Monahan did for our team and how he tutored people like Fantilli, Monahan, if healthy, man, this guy can play. I remember talking to Jeff Gorton, who runs Montreal, and I said, that's another one. I phoned him on Monahan. And he says, all I know is when he played for us and he was healthy, we were a much better hockey club. And that's exactly what's happened with us. We missed Monahan for a number of weeks with a wrist, But man, when he was in. This is an underrated, very, very, very good hockey player with the intelligence to have young players like a Fantilli, for sure, to help him understand where he is, where he's going, what he is, to whether it's on the bench, in the locker room, whatever. You need that leadership when you have young players. So there's a lot of good things that have happened. That's what we have to hang our hat on. I look at the series and I've watched it closely. It might be the most fun series to watch. Edmonton and LA last night was pretty good, but watching Montreal play hard, it's physical, which you expected from Tom Wilson for sure. We would have given Washington a very, very good battle. There's not a chance in the world they would have been able to intimidate us. I know that. We've got some toughness that can get us through when you need it with a club like Washington that has good size.
John, when you spin this forward to next year and you put 2024, 25 behind, and a lot of, I think the identity of this club was galvanized coming out of the Johnny Gaudreau tragedy. And next year, you're not going to take anybody by surprise. And so how do you work this forward into a mindset that says, you know what, we are ready to take this next step and grow beyond what we went through this past season?
Vic, I think all the young players now know that they're pretty good NHL players. And I think some of them still understand how much stronger they have to get. They've got a summer to do that, to work on it. I think there'll be instead of kind of a shocking feeling coming to training camp after the death of the Gaudreau boys, and it did galvanize, there's no question. I mean, Johnny's wife spends a lot of time in Columbus, and the team rallies around her. It's a pretty special thing. In fact, it's a very special thing. But next year, the players will be older. They'll know what to expect from their coaching staff. I think that it's going to be a good step forward for us, because I don't think we're going to go into the season as we're going to be, we were predicted to be last in the league and this and that and this and that. But Monahan helped. The players just grew. Mateychuk joined us halfway through the season as a young defenseman. He's a top 4 guy already. I mean, he's just a kid. And so we've got to get better goaltending to be more consistent. A young guy by the name of Jet Greaves, who's been in Cleveland for a couple of years, he doesn't stop the puck. So maybe he's there as part of that answer. I think there's an air of excitement. I think there's going to be some expectations, and some people say that that's pressure. That's good pressure. Expectations where I think that good. I'm glad there is for this team, because I think it's earned the expectations, and now it's up to the club itself to go and execute.
John, I was just thinking as you were speaking about the being in places twice, and you've been in St. Louis twice, once as a goaltender, once as a team president. You've been in Columbus twice, probably in the same role both times, but you had a little exit and back over to another old team of yours where you played goal and then went back as team president, the Rangers. And I've been with the Rangers, and I was fortunate enough to be there when you were there as the color commentator, and we had a great 11 years together. But I got to tell you, the mess this season is just, in my books, absolutely remarkable. And I know you've got a bit of closer look at it, because you've been around some of those guys that I haven't been around, for example, Drury and everyone. I mean, it's remarkable what happened there to go from the President's Trophy to completely imploding and missing the playoffs.
Yeah. What I found interesting was that the majority of their best players, and there's quite a few, there's some good players there, they all kind of fell backwards at the same time. Then you've got to figure out why that happened. And I think that they've spent a lot of time trying to go through that now and figure that out. Mike Sullivan, if head coach, that's going to help. It's going to help. He gets it, and he knows how to deal with players that are at the top of the heap. And so I think that in looking at that situation, there's going to be a lot of the old E.F. Hutton, when he speaks, people are going to listen type of thing. And so that I think will be very helpful for the organization. But I think it's like there's teams throughout the league, there's players throughout the league that have off years. They had a lot of off years there, and I think that self-reflection, a strong summer, and I really believe Sullivan, Mike he's good. I think he's very good. He's got a presence. He's smart. He's unrelenting. I think that's going to make a world of difference for them going forward.
And do you think it's a foregone conclusion that he's going there?
Well, no, I that's what we hear. That's what we hear. So, no, I don't actually. I shouldn't say that. There's a big if there, if it's true. There's a lot of talk about it. I can't say myself really that it's going to happen. There's a lot of talk. Smoke means fire. So if he is the guy, yeah, that'd be good.
I mean, it all makes sense, and it's certainly. I said to Vic this morning, as soon as I saw it, I said, "How long before he's sitting with Drury and talking?" And so, but
they got to know each other at the Four Seasons. The Four Nations, right? So I think there is a relationship there. Now, again, I shouldn't say it's for sure. I don't know that for sure. I'm being honest. I'm just saying what I've heard and read, and if he is the guy, it'll make a big difference. I think their next coach, like a lot of teams, it's an important decision for them.
Oh, absolutely. And Chris Kreider, that's an important decision. What happens with him? I mean, he's been such a staple of the organization. And then this year had such a terrible year on the Chris Kreider level of play that we've been used to. It'll be interesting to see what happens with his future at the Rangers.
He was banged up a number of different, from what I've read. Of course, I'm not there. I'm not inside with the Rangers anymore, but he was banged up. But again, you look around the league, and some teams that have a tough year, a lot of times it's their best players that fell back a little bit. And that, to me, is what happened with the Rangers. Some of their best players fell back. But I honestly think, in knowing a number of them, that they'll battle back. I like their, I know them, and I know that they compete, and I know that I just have a sense they're going to come back and battle and get back to a team that's going to make some noise.
John, we also talked about very often, Neil and I, about the Rangers' style of play as well. And they've got a lot of players that, quite frankly, love to play east to west and side to side. And that this team is not built for the playoffs right now. JT Miller was a good start for them, more of a straight line player. You have to think over the last few years that Gerard Gallant tried to get them to play north-south and play a direct game, and Peter Laviolette as well. Can any coach get through to this current roster that winning 10 games in the playoffs in 22 and 24 isn't winning 16, and that those last 6 games is the commitment that you need to have to get pucks in deep and the willingness to chase those down and win 50-50 battles?
I know one guy is Will Cuylle. he likes to go north. The story there was the Rangers had drafted Lias Andersson. And Lias, I believe he was I can't remember what number he was in the first round, but anyway, it just didn't work. It didn't work. And he went back to Sweden, wasn't playing, and this and that. So the next season's draft, Jeff Gorton was running the club. And our scouts really, really, really liked Will Cuylle. And so Jeff got on the blower. He's trying to make a trade. He ended up dealing Lias Andersson to Los Angeles for the 60th pick. Lias's father was a scout, a former player in the National Hockey League for Los Angeles. So the deal was made at the draft. The draft pick was in, and it was Will Cuylle. So that was smart business. That went from a player that just didn't make it as a first-round pick to getting somebody like Cuylle, which I think a lot of teams in hindsight would have taken him in the first round when you see the way he plays. He's a north-south player, plays hard, can score, the whole thing. So it's interesting how you have to take the good, but sometimes when you get the bad, to try to find a way to weasel yourself out of it or get yourself out of it and make a deal that can help your club. So, yeah, I think that, there's, it's a hard game. It's hard to win. You've got to, and the Rangers have retooled along the way here too. I think that a player, if they can find 2 or 3 more Will Coolies for that north-south stuff, that will complement the Panarin type player that can go east-west. And, you have some players that do that, but if they're as good as Panarin is, you can live with it.
Sort of another Alexei Kovalev type of living with.
I was thinking about him the other day. Oh, my Lord. I love that guy. He was something else, man. But did he have skill? Holy, did he frustrate? Oh, so remember that story, Neil, in the game in New Jersey when he went to go off the ice? Mike Keenan said, "Stay out there." And he came back to the bench 3 or 4 times because there was no whistles. And to get off, and Mike Keenan says, "Stay out there," because he was mad at him for extending shifts. So he made sure he stayed out there for time after time after time. Only Alexei thought that was the greatest thing in the whole world. He thought he was doing, oh, my life is unbelievable.
Well, were you doing that game, John, or were you?
No, at that game we didn't. We were switching back and forth. I was at the game, sitting up there watching it. But we did the next one. Oh, my. Was that game? I can't remember what game it was, but it was something else.
That leads us to the topic that Vic and I really wanted to talk to you about as well, and that is Sam. We had Sam on here. Was gracious, great, as you know how he is, and you guys got together for the TNT game on April 9th, and I watched it. I know Vic watched it, and we had a lot of fun seeing you two guys together again. There's so many things that you could say about Sam, so many memories in that, but is there anything that you'd like people to know from your heart about working all those years with Sam?
I think one thing, he's always been a professional. He's always worked, all that stuff. But I think what he does off the ice, guys, in the New York area, it's not just Manhattan, it's Jersey, it's Long Island, it's all over the place. I don't know how many times he's gone out on days off or during the off season to go to a charity event and be the guy that runs an auction or whatever it is to raise funds. And I don't know how much money over his 40 years of doing Rangers hockey, how many tens of millions of dollars he's helped raise for people that need it. I think he's a New York institution. And it's not so much the play-by-play. It's what he's done to help the people that needed help. This guy's unbelievable. He never says no. He never gets tired. He just does it and loves it. The other thing is he's always got time for people, whether it's on a subway or in a restaurant or wherever it is. He's recognizable. As you guys know, Ranger fans are everywhere. I mean, I got recognized the other day in Key West, Florida, a number of times by Ranger fans. It was great. I mean, they're so nice. And hey, JD, I need a picture. It's awesome. It's just awesome. And so I think that's one thing about Sam that I hope people realize, because he deserves to have the recognition for it. He wouldn't want it, but that's what he's been able to do. He's been a true friend, a family friend. Our kids grew up together. And so this wasn't just a working relationship. It grew up into a family fun relationship. And then for his years of play-by-play work, he's been really good, really, really good. And there's been a lot of people that have come up to both Sam and myself and said, and they're older now because we were back in the day. You helped us understand the game. You taught us the game. And that's a nice compliment. And Sam was the leader. He's a true pro and a professional person and a big-hearted human being. He's just a wonderful guy.
One of the things that I asked Sam, and you'll get this, JD, you'll get this as well as I do. I said, I knew you before you were at the Garden, and I said, then all of a sudden you got that job in 1986 or 89 or whatever it was. No, 86. I'm sorry. I got there in 89. And I said, how did you do it? How did you last this long? Because I said, I've been at the Garden. We've all been at the Garden. Like,
and we've been gone out of the Garden.
And we've been gone. And how did you do it? You're like a mythological character.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, boy. We had some battles, too. I remember when we were broadcasting in our first 7, 8, 9 years, he hated fighting. I mean, he really did. And here's a guy that made a living on television at calling boxing. I mean, I'm going, Sam, it doesn't make sense. You got two guys in the ring pounding the hell out of each other. Yet in hockey, I don't like it. It's not good for the game. But he came around and had an understanding along the way that sometimes players just had to take care of business on the ice. And so we used to battle about that quite a bit. He was late all the time, too, by the way. Sam Rosen was always late.
Not to our podcast.
Actually, he was always late early in the early years. Later, he was good. So, no, we had fun. And a lot of dinners together. You go on the road, you talk hockey. And he was always in a good mood, always had energy. And I think that, when he went around this season, much like Jeff Rimmer did. Jeff Rimmer last season retired as the play-by-play guy in Columbus. People around the league, they spend time. They go get to know the coach. They go get to know the players. When you come in with a team, as an executive or whatever, you don't go talk to the other team's players. You don't do that. But broadcasters do, and they build up relationships. And Sam, he's been recognized rightly so all season long until he retired. And you could see that it was real. I mean, John Cooper comes up to him in Tampa Bay. I remember being in the Garden when we had Sam's night on the ice. And who was in there? Vancouver was in there. Rick Tocchet came up with a box with a beautiful older style jersey from the Canucks and a gift card and a nice bottle of wine and all that stuff. So I don't know where he's putting all the stuff he got all season in his household. And if he drinks all that wine, it's going to take him a couple of years to take care of that. But yeah, he was fantastic.
The ride down to City Hall in '94. Was it as white-knuckled as Sam has always described it?
Well, I was steamed. I was not very happy. Neil and the gang wins the Stanley Cup. We'd been around all year, and they've got the thing happening downtown in the Canyon of Heroes, and we got to go to the studio in Madison Square Garden and be part of a broadcast there and not have the feel of being where stuff was happening. So I was miserable, and I admit it. And Sam, he was Sam. He's always in a good mood and all this stuff. So next thing I know, we're working along, and in comes two of New York's finest. In they come, and they said, "Pack your stuff. You're going downtown." Holy! It was kind of like a shock, but it was exuberance. It was cool. And so we rush out with our bags and jump into the back seat of the police car. And these, you should have seen this. They were going down. I don't even know what avenues we were going down, but this was white knuckle, wide open eyes. And then all this, slam, turn, sirens going around, back and forth. And then we get down there. And I remember it hit me like, do you remember the Beatles song, Yellow Submarine? It felt like in the police car, we were in a submarine, because when you looked out, all you saw were faces. And there was, Neil, you guys would know, 1 million people down there, right? At least 1 million people, not one arrest, by the way. And I keep telling people that after the game, there was people all over the Garden at the parade. Not one arrest in New York. Not one in New York. Other cities, they bomb, they break, not one. It was really really special. But anyway, we finally got down there and sat back but watched and just soaked it in. It was for me at least, and for Sam too, I'm sure, just to be there and see it happen live and in real time. That was only in New York. Only in New York.
Before we let you go, 1 cup, 16 teams, 8 great series going on right now. All of them as Neil and I had discussed at the top of our show, compelling in very unique ways. I mean, it's phenomenal theater. Is there anything that has captivated you in particular in watching all of these through the first 8-9 days of the playoffs?
The goalie injuries are interesting. How many guys have been banged up and they're out of games, and then the backup has to come in and try to get the job done. We've seen it in Montreal, we've seen it in Carolina, we've seen it with Washington. It's just crazy. The resiliency of some of the teams to battle back. I feel bad in a lot of ways for Jersey not having their best player in the series. It's amazing how many teams have injuries, and then they plan it, if they can, to have their best players through those injuries to start the playoffs, to be back in time. And it's certainly helpful. I've loved watching every day. Sometimes I don't make it quite all the way through the night, but I give it my best shot because you don't know what's going to happen. I think that Montreal series with Washington seems to be the one that reminds me of an old time series. I don't know if Neil, you agree, or guys, just the Tom Wilson, who's a hunter, he's out there hunting. And I've lived that with our teams when we've had playoffs with Washington. I remember when he hit Alexander Wenberg, it almost killed him. And to see Montreal not back down, to see an older player like David Savard, who I loved in Columbus, to see him battle and block Ovechkin's shots on the power play. This has just been special to watch. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Edmonton fighting back, the value of the good games and the battles, and I love controversy in the playoffs. I just love it. I know the goalie camera league probably don't, but they know it's coming, and that means that when there's controversies like that, it means it's intense. It means players and coaches are giving it everything they have. So and it's only the first round. It's fabulous. I've really enjoyed it.
JD, you we mentioned before, and we'll mention many times, you were a goaltender. You're one of many great goaltenders that the Rangers had. A two-part question for you, because how have the Rangers been so blessed to go from Eddie Giacomin to John Davidson to John Van Beesbrook to Mike Richter to Lundqvist to Shesterkin, and never miss a beat in between. Now, having said all that, they miss beats in other areas, but in the goaltending area, they've always had the good goaltender, and yet other teams have gone decades without a good goaltender.
I said that to Sam Rosen. I said, you broadcasted 40 years, Richter, Van Beesbrook, Lundqvist, Shesterkin, that's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty good. There's never been a real big question there. I look at Edmonton. Remember those years when they had Fuhr and Moog and Billy Ranford, and they went years and years, even though they gave up goals, but they had great goaltending. They did when they were a winning combination. I actually don't know. Somebody has done the job. I'm not sure how or why. I know that Janko, I can't say his last name, has been part of their goaltending scouting, and he's the one that did a lot to find Shesterkin. I know that Benny Allaire, the goaltending guru, I think he really has helped that situation for a number of years. You know, you mentioned these goalies. I was in the broadcasting business of doing the Ranger games, and I went to the practice facility, and I'll never forget the very first practice that Henrik Lundqvist came to the practice for the Rangers. And I stood right at ice level on the goal line and watched him. And within 5 minutes, you could say, oh, baby, this is something. This is something. And he did his time over in Europe, but didn't get a lot of fanfare that he was going to be the next one in New York. The first day he showed up in the first practice, you could see there was something there. Van Beesbrook and Richter, imagine having two at one time. Mm-hmm. At one time.
Yeah.
And then decisions had to be made, right?
Yeah, that was awful. That was awful.
I remember you and I talked about that some. You know, where do you go? What do you do? You got two of them here, you know, and they're both tremendous goaltenders. And, you know, John Van Beesbrook got his Florida to the finals. Richter won with the Rangers. So it was It was a special time.
So speaking of goaltenders and all those great goaltenders, the best goaltender statistically in the league is Connor Hellebuyck. He won the Vezina last year. He's going to win it this year. John, Vic and I talked about this before you came on the show. Can you explain it at all? Because I can't.
No, I don't think I can either. I don't know. As a former goaltender, you kind of try to look at yourself and your experience. And my first playoff was with the St. Louis Blues as a 19-year-old. We played Pittsburgh in a short series and lost. And I was just okay. I was so young and I was so nervous and didn't get the job done like I should have. We lost to Pittsburgh. And then I fast forward, some playoffs, the year that we got to the finals was in 1979. And I had a shoulder injury, didn't play the last 10 days, 2 weeks, and I'm going to start the playoffs. So we're playing the Los Angeles Kings, and they had the Triple Crown line, right? With Taylor and Marcel Dion. And anyway, Charlie Simmer, right. And it was Charlie that came down early in the first period on a partial breakaway. I remember like it was yesterday. And he went around me, flipped the puck, and hit the post. Stayed out. We went on to the Stanley Cup Finals. I often wonder, since, first game back, hadn't played, if that thing hadn't gone in, would life been a little bit different? I don't know. We can't predict, but you never know. So you need a little bit of luck, too, to help you get to where you want to go. So it's, I don't know what to think. I'm trying to analyze some of the goals that I've seen on Hellebuyck, and a lot of them have either been weird deflections or something you can't see. There's three guys in front, and all of a sudden it's in the top corner. I hope he battles back because it looks like he's a consummate pro. It looks like he's committed to Winnipeg, which is good. And I want to see a guy have success in the playoffs. It can make your career. I love playing playoff games. I love going into Philadelphia and having a battle. I love going to play the Islanders and having a battle. But he's got to find a way. He's got to find a way, and soon, obviously.
You could probably flip a coin on 5 of these 8 series, maybe even 6. Does anybody's path look more appealing to you in terms of being able to get to the final?
No. If Carolina could take care of business and get rested and stay healthy, that's going to help them. Out west, oh boy, that's tough out there. It really is. It's when you look at it from the outside, trying to figure some teams out. Boy, Vegas, pretty good hockey club. Now they're in a battle. You've got Tampa's showing the fact that they do have winners there. They had a huge win. So I don't know if there is an easy pathway. I look at teams that are down the ladder. If they're healthy, they can battle. They can beat somebody. I mean, I look at Montreal. They're giving Washington everything they had. It won't be easy for Washington to knock Montreal out in the next game. But
Minnesota has really.
How about that? Well, they got, you take their lineup and all of a sudden you add Eriksson Ek and you add Kaprizov. That changes the dynamic of your whole team, and they fed off that. I mean, it's something else. I have you can sit down in your office or your front room and put the TV on, and you've got a game going to fire up. I don't know who's going to win it. I have no idea, and that's good. It's fun to watch, and you're in this time of year where new heroes. Like I look at Minnesota, that Hartman, the way he's playing right now. I mean, he's a good hockey player, but he's stepped it up in this series. You love watching players like that can do that. I love seeing Edmonton battle back. That's going to be a tremendous series, it looks like, or already has. I just love the teams that fight back and battle back, especially the good players getting it done.
That's another goaltending situation too, John, not to cut him, because you got Pickard has gone in to replace Skinner, and Vic and I have talked about that because he asked me, what do you do now that Skinner's lost both games in LA? And I say, you stick with him. And of course, they luckily didn't listen to me and they put Pickard in.
It's those guys that are the goalie coaches, they get asked these hard questions and they better have an answer. And then you hope like hell it works. Give him credit. Pickard's found a way. The team's found a way. You can't figure it out sometimes. You just can't. And that's what makes NHL playoffs so much fun. You just try to predict it. It's so hard, so darn hard. The only thing I wish is that like New Jersey and again, they got so beat up with their high-end players. Siegenthaler comes back, right? The defenseman, you expect him to play, 14, 15 minutes. He played something like 28. I mean, that's how much they miss these guys. And after you've been out a long time and all of a sudden you play 28 minutes, what do you got left for the next game and maybe the next one? It's so hard. But that's the unpredictability of NHL playoffs. It's fantastic.
John, we appreciate you joining us today, giving us so much insight in so many different areas, and all the best to you during the offseason and to the Columbus Blue Jackets. And we hope we have you on again real soon.
Thanks, guys. By the way, let me know if Sullivan gets hired as the coach of the Rangers, will you?
We'll
Who
see.
knows?
Yeah,
I shouldn't be reading the rumor mill.
Yeah. All right.
Take care. Thanks. I really enjoyed it. Appreciate it, guys. All the best.
Thank you, John.
Our website is NHLWraparound.com. And please remember that Stanley Cup dates on non-wraparound days will be taking place throughout the playoffs. Neil, I was really glad to hear JD talk about how unpredictable the playoffs are, because this way you don't have to feel bad about your picks.
You're absolutely right. And because I do feel bad about some of my picks in this playoff series, but he's spot on. And he says it like, I don't know who's going to win when I sit down at my TV to watch. Like that's true. And you love to be involved. You'd love to have a prediction at least in it to see whether you can do it or not. And I mean, it is really fun. And if it was 4 straight every series, it wouldn't be any fun.
I had 3 out of 4 yesterday when you asked me, and the one that I lost were the Kings throwing another game away late, getting tied and then dropping it in overtime.
I thought LA would win that game too before the game started. I mean, early in the day, I thought that they would win that game, and I thought Carolina would win as they did. But I didn't foresee St. Louis doing what they did.
There was a quartet of game 4s on Sunday, and want to ask you about the biggest takeaways from each of these 4 games. So let's just evolve it through the day. St. Louis beats Winnipeg 5-1, ties the series at 2 games apiece. What stood out?
Adversity. Winnipeg is not able to handle adversity. They've had none all season. They've run the gauntlet from start to finish, President's Trophy, right from the beginning, right till the end. I wonder if the St. Louis Blues coming back on them and throwing some pucks into the net, they just don't know how to handle this. Like, this doesn't happen to Winnipeg. And, sure, they've lost some games during the season. Everybody loses games. But what I'm seeing is a St. Louis team that has nothing to lose and a Winnipeg team that's now being frightened.
I thought that the Jets got off to a start that they wanted. I mean, Blues started quickly, but once Winnipeg was able to kill a penalty, they got a couple of chances of their own. They went ahead, and then you give up a goal in that last minute. And it just seemed to deflate the Jets at that point. And I'm looking at this series and I'm thinking, okay, what does this remind me of? Because usually there is one series that will remind you of another. And this one brought me back to the 2011 final between the Canucks and the Bruins. And I'll tell you where I'm going with this. The way Vancouver played in Boston, I said, I think they're going to try to win this in Game 7 at home because they know that they can't win in Boston. And I'm watching this series evolve. I think the Blues can win either 5 or 7 in Winnipeg. I don't know that if the Jets drop game 5 at home, whether they can go into St. Louis and win a game.
Interesting. Very interesting. I mean, I agree with you by the way I'm looking at it, because what I'm looking at is they just don't know how to handle things once they get behind. And maybe at home, it's a lot easier for them than it is in a volatile St. Louis where they were the last 2 games.
By the way, did you hear after Kyle Connor's goal, one of the rink mics picked up something and said, 55, you suck. And somebody was yelling at Colton Parayko, who, of course, winds up getting 2 assists right after that.
Yeah. And this game was in St. Louis, and they're yelling that at Parayko.
That's right. What did Bob Uecker say? The late, great Bob Uecker? Those fans, I love them. Game 5 in Winnipeg, Wednesday at 9:30. Carolina Hurricanes now lead the New Jersey Devils 3-1 after a 5-2 victory on Sunday. I think the Devils are getting as much as they possibly can with the players that they have. They're down to their 7th, 8th, and 9th defensemen on their depth chart at this point.
Yeah, they're really banged up, and Markstrom's doing a real good job in goal. But I got to tell you, my biggest takeaway from Game 4 is that of the 4 games, it was the most bland. Now, maybe it was the telecast crew that they had doing the game that did it very blandly, but there wasn't the spice and vinegar in that game that we saw in all the other series. I mean, it just was, Jersey did not play well at home, obviously, because they're banged up. The building was quiet for Newark, and, Carolina, basically, it looked like they were going to win from start to finish, and they did.
One of the areas that we looked at that could have been decisive in this series was in goal. And I'm going to start on the Devils side. Jacob Markstrom was not particularly good. Gave up that really sharp angle goal to Jacob Slavin. And then on the 4th goal, bad clear. And on the Carolina side, there's a story here because Freddie Anderson was run into by Timo Meier after getting tied up with Andrei Svechnikov. Anderson had to leave the game early in the second period. Pyotr Kochetkov came in. Goal that made it 3-2 by Meier from along the boards was a little bit sketchy, and then hung on, played well after that. But is Kochetkov the kind of guy that's going to be able to lead them forward? Anderson's going to be reevaluated on Monday, and we'll see how long, if at all, that he is out.
Yeah, there should have been a penalty to Meier on that play. And what made me confused is that, like, if you touch a goalie during the regular season, if you're a forward, you get a goalie interference penalty. Sometimes you can't help yourself, but crash into the goalie. This was one where Meier was not pushed in by Svechnikov, and Svechnikov immediately turned to the referee and put his hands in the air and said, like, what's going on here? And they still didn't give Meier a penalty. I thought that was a real blunder on the referee's part in that game.
Carolina wrap this up on Tuesday at 7:30?
I think so. I think so. And I think Andersson comes back, although we do know that he's had injury problems in the past, but he's been playing great for them. And hopefully it's nothing severe, but you never know. When you're hit like that, when you're still and you get hit by a 200-pound moving object and you go backwards the way he did, is there a concussion there? Is there a back issue, a leg issue? What is it? But we'll see.
By the way, special teams still decisive here. Carolina 4 for 13 on the power play. The Devils 0 for 12.
Yeah. Well, no Jack Hughes. No Luke Hughes. There you go.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Washington, with a 5-2 win over Montreal, taking a 3-1 series lead back home to the nation's capital. The atmosphere at the Bell Center was beyond phenomenal in this game. I thought that until we got to Edmonton and LA, this had all the theater that you could ever ask for.
Oh, absolutely. And I got, Wilson from the, Tom Wilson from the Caps provides so much theater himself being out there. And then you've got Josh Anderson, who's quoted as saying, yeah, everybody asked me about why do I remind them of him? And it's always been that way. And then you've got the Demidov situation where Montreal fans think that this is the next Guy Lafleur. And then you've got the situation that you've got Montreal's got Dobish in net because their starter, Montembeault, got hurt. And so, you've got a ton of theater. Logan Thompson comes back from his injury, doesn't miss a game. There's a lot going on there, but typical for Montreal. That is the city of Montreal. It is different. I told you, when I was a kid watching the original six, if the Habs fans were disappointed in something, out came the galoshes onto the ice. They pulled them off their shoes and threw them on the ice. That's how they showed their displeasure back then. It's always been a volatile atmosphere in Montreal.
The only reason people would even remember the word galoshes is because you said they had to pull them off their shoes.
Well, that's why I said that, because I knew young people out there would say, like, is that a sandwich or something? Or is that a smoked meat?
In watching Jakub Dobish, and they are down 3-1 in this series, but kind of harken back memories to Steve Penny back in 1984.
Who was called into action. Dobish has a great story, though, doesn't he? About going over to North America, ending up in the U.S. Junior League and going to Ohio State and on and on. I mean, this guy really wanted it, and he pursued it, and look at him. He's in the NHL playoffs.
And certainly hasn't embarrassed himself. And the Canadians took a 2-1 lead into the third period. Dylan Strome opened the scoring, but midway and then later in the second. How about this? If you're a Montreal fan and you see these scoring lines and you say, hey, this is our present and our future. Juraj Slafkovsky from Demidov and Lane Hudson and Caulfield from Hudson and Demidov. This is what you've got to look forward to going forward. That does not suck.
No, that's some good stuff there. And you've still got a fairly young captain in Suzuki to go along with those guys. And so, Montreal's future, just like we talked about with JD and the Columbus Blue Jackets, eventually you're going to get better. If you keep getting high picks and you keep making the right picks, you're going to get better.
But they are clearly ahead of where anybody thought that they were going to be this year.
Oh, absolutely. Nobody thought they'd be in the playoffs this year. So to be in the playoffs is a big deal. Next year, not to jump ahead of this series because they're still very much in this series with Washington, but next year will be the hard year for Marty St. Louis and his group because they're going to want to make more advancement, and they're not going to want to be a wild card team, and they may find themselves in the same situation, having to work hard to try to get into the wild card spots because they're just not quite there. And, they've got to temper their expectations for next season.
15 years ago, 1-8 against Washington, won games 5 and 7. Just saying. But I want to go to the third period for the Washington Capitals, where they outscore the Habs 4-0. And we're going to put this one on the curb once and for all now. The OV chase, all of that stuff, it's done. I'm not even going to let you talk about it anymore, because this was the period that we saw from the Caps all regular season, finding ways to win games that maybe they weren't at their best, maybe they were getting outplayed, maybe the momentum was on the other side. And this third period was exactly what we had seen to get them to first in the Eastern Conference during the course of the regular season.
Absolutely agree. They had so many comeback wins in the third period during the regular season. That was vintage regular season play by the Caps. Now, goals, let me state for the record, goals 4 and 5 were empty net goals. And Montreal did a horrible job of the 6-on-5 with the net empty. I mean, as soon as the puck was dropped, it seemed like the puck was in their net. So they didn't do a good job. But nevertheless, Washington found a way to come back from behind in the third period and win that hockey game.
Well, Hudson had the turnover on the 4-2 goal, which was Duhaime's second goal of the game. But the game winner, after Duhaime tied the score at 6:39, about 10 minutes later, Tom Wilson absolutely blew up Alex Carrier at center ice. And that actually screwed up the line change for the Canadians. And on the ensuing rush, Andrew Mangiapane with the game winner, with just 3:37 left.
Yeah, and because Carrier had to go to the bench after that hit. And when he was going to the bench, that left them down one man, and Washington was able to turn the puck and go the other way. And you're right, they didn't have the right guys out there, and Mangiapane was able to find the corner.
And how cool on the 5-2 goal, the second empty netter, Tom Wilson.
Yeah, Tom Wilson again. Can you imagine being a Montreal fan and being in the building when 43 scores? Like, you just like, oh my God, what an awful day.
The guy's an unbelievable player, though. He has, and he admitted this in his interview, that a lot of the dumb things he would do early in his career, and you see some of the hits that he laid on guys. I mean, he was a dangerous player. Not only was he a hard hitter, but he was dangerous. And you always had to be looking out for him. And he's been suspended over times, but he's fast. He's got great hands. He's got really good hockey sense. And I got to tell you, from a TV perspective, whether it's TNT or ESPN, I want to see that handshake with Josh Anderson when this series is over.
Yeah, I want to see that one too. So, yeah, I mean, Wilson's the guy that every GM wants, but everybody hates, but you'd love him on your team.
Making a huge impact. So once again, Game 5, Caps are going to try to close it out. So an extra day off in this series. I'm going to hand LA and Edmonton to you because I've got so many notes here that I took during this game. So I'm going to put it out to you, just what your thought process is here as this series has evolved. Oilers dropped the first 2, come back, even the series. Kings are showing that holding leads are very difficult against the Oilers. And it almost looked last night to the point that this is mental. We talked about Connor Hellebuyck mental. This is a team mental thing for the Kings right now.
Yeah, it very much might be a mental thing for the Kings. They've got it in their head that McDavid, Draisaitl, and Bouchard are too much. They can, that they got to be able to defend them. I think they'll play a lot differently when they get home in LA because they always do play differently in LA, and Edmonton plays different on the road. And we'll see what that brings. But we do know that there's going to be another game in Edmonton, and LA is going to have to be prepared for it. I thought LA would win this game. I got to be honest with you. I thought LA would take this game even before it started. I thought they would. I thought they would have learned from Game 3 and be able to batten down the hatches in Game 4.
And from Game 1 also, where they blew leads of 4-0 and 5-2. And as I was watching this game, especially in the early going, they can skate with the Oilers. They can counter. Their transitions were really good. They're out shooting Edmonton 28-15 through 2 periods. The shots on goal at the end of this game were 48-41 for the Oilers, 33-13 in the third period in the overtime. And look, I'm not a quantity shots guy. Tell me where they're from more than how many that you get. But these were great scoring opportunities. And when that game went to 3-1 into the third period, first thing I'm thinking is, all right, if Edmonton gets the first goal of the period, what happens from here? 7:51 in, Evan Bouchard gets a goal on somewhat of a muffed clear from in front by Drew Doughty. And then they're literally in the Kings zone for the rest of regulation time. There were some counters by the Kings, but you could just tell that they were bringing it. And then a couple of errors late. First one was Joel Edmondson, an unforced icing from his own end, trying to shoot for the empty net. And quite frankly, if I'm thinking accuracy, he's not number one on my list. And that was a puck that he could have just flipped straight up in the air and had it land in center ice. And then the fatal one, Quentin Byfield, with a chance to get it out in the final minute with about 40 or so seconds left, tried to go through Evan Bouchard as opposed to making a simple chip off the boards. Maybe the Oilers regroup and have one last shot, but instead the puck's turned over and it's in their net 10 seconds later, and that forced the overtime.
And Jim Hiller must be bald, pulling all the hair out of his head after that, because that's what you're always saying about NHL players. Just chip it off the boards, get it over the blue line, chip it off the boards. Don't try to go through that guy. And he did it. He's a young guy. I think they'll be a lot different in LA. I just do.
Yeah. The thing that bothered me about it, he actually had time. This was not a split second thing. He had the puck on his stick and started to skate up ice with it. So it wasn't just that Bouchard was right on top of him. There was time to make the smart play, and he just didn't make it. And then Leon Draisaitl in overtime on a power play. And to be honest with you, the Oilers probably could have had 3 or 4 power plays during the third period that weren't called. And the call that was made against Gavrikov in the overtime, certainly a penalty that was deserved for tripping against Connor McDavid. So another one that gets away from the Kings. But one thing I will say, Darcy Kemper was phenomenal in this game. And Calvin Pickard, despite getting the 2 wins, hasn't struck me as the guy that's going to steal a game in Los Angeles, because, as we had talked about before Game 3, you can't switch back to Stu Skinner now.
No, you can't. You've got to go with the hot hand. And Pickard is the hot hand for them right now. But I agree with you. Kemper, you can't hang this game on Kemper. He played real well.
Game 5, Tuesday at 10 o'clock. A pair of games on Monday, so the ticket goes back to ESPN for both of these games. What are you looking for most in Tampa and Florida, which starts at 7 o'clock?
Well, you know, John Davidson said it, and their championship pedigree came out in Tampa the other day, and when they won Game 3 in Florida, and I agree, it did. You know, the Mateychuk suspension is going to be something to look for in Game 4. What will that end up being like? Again, I think this is skill versus grit and grime. And I don't know which way it's going to go. I really don't. It's going to be one of the ones that's really interesting to see, and really hard to make a prediction on, because there are 2 teams that are very equally good, but in far different ways.
Do you love the chirping that's going on between the 2 coaches? And both have used the line against each other regarding the hits by Hagel and by Matthew Tkachuk. The only players we hit are the ones with pucks.
Yeah, but that was just a comeback on Maurice by Cooper when Cooper's asked, and he just repeated what Maurice had said. I think that's great, and I think Maurice will just laugh when he reads that. You know, Paul Maurice's sense of humor, he'll love it. So the thing that's really amazing is Kucherov. I mean, Florida is just targeting him every chance they get, trying to get him off his game. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of it. Now, I do know that he got the 3 assists and all the rest of it, but I mean, they are getting under his skin.
I'm loving this series. Like, I'm loving every one, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can't say, as I said, the only one yesterday that I thought was very pedestrian was Carolina, Jersey.
Good word. Good term. And I agree.
Yeah.
Other game on Monday starting at 9:30, Colorado, Dallas, Game 5. They are riding the wave of a 4-0 victory to tie the series on Saturday. Gabe Landeskog, goal, assist, +2 on the night. And this Colorado team looked like the one that I've expected throughout this series in terms of their tempo, their relentless attack, full 60-minute game. And now it's up to Dallas with home ice to counter that. And they really need to get some of their guns going.
They really do. And they're missing their biggest one in Jason Robertson. And then we don't know if Heiskanen will be back in this series or not. Certainly, if they get him, that's a huge thing for the Dallas Stars. But I like Colorado. I've liked them before this started, and I don't mind them on the road. So I'm looking to Colorado to take the lead 3-2.
Well, you did like Colorado all the way back in March when we were evaluating these teams right after the deadline. So you're being held to that.
Good.
All right, good. Other two series resuming on Tuesday, Ottawa and Toronto, Game 5, Leafs leading that series 3-1, and Minnesota and Vegas. That series is at 2 apiece, and that will be played at 9:30 p.m. One final injury note, Tyler Tucker, defenseman for the St. Louis Blues, left during the third period with a right leg injury. Leg appeared to crumble under him. We should know more about his status later on Monday. This is the human side of the story, and we just mentioned a few minutes ago about the boost that the Colorado Avalanche have received with Gabriel Landeskog back in the lineup after not having played a game in the NHL for 34 months, and what that means to this club, having their captain back after all this time.
And what it means to the fans, too, because the last time they saw Gabriel Landeskog on the ice was hoisting the Stanley Cup in 2022. And I think everybody's excited that he's back and playing again after everything that he's been through.
His story is remarkable, and his initial injury to his right knee took place in the bubble in 2020 when teammate Cale Makar fell and his skate came up and clipped Landeskog right over that right knee. And if you actually see the video, you can actually see the cut in his stocking on his right leg. And he limped off the ice, had a small procedure to address that issue, but did feel pain during the course of the 2021-22 season. He had another cleanup procedure in March of 22, and that was basically smoothing cartilage behind the patella, but he did return for the playoffs, felt pain in the first round that year, but still managed to hoist the Stanley Cup. And Neil, that's the last we saw of him for 3 years. Who knew at that time?
No, I mean, you kept asking, where is he? When is he coming back? What's his status? And it was just so peculiar that he was out so long. And you don't see this happen except with incredible athletes.
In the fall of that year, he had the same procedure as the one that he had in March, but still was not seeing the necessary improvement, still was uncomfortable. And then in May of 2023, almost 2 years ago, decided to have this unique procedure where he would have a cartilage transplant. And this had never been done on an NHL player before, but he thought this was really the last opportunity that he had to be able to get back to playing.
Yeah, and obviously it worked. And, it doesn't it remind you a little bit of Jack Eichel and the stuff that he went through in Buffalo? Now, that was a lot shorter window. I'm not comparing the window, but Eichel wanted to have this procedure done. The Sabres didn't want it done, and it ended up leading to his trade to Vegas.
Yeah, on his neck. And so there are obviously players that are willing to have these unique surgeries that have not been performed on other athletes before, or those that have been able to come back. They're willing to take that risk.
Right. But see, where the club runs into this is that the club is on the hook for the contract. right? So when Jack Eichel says, I want to have this thing that's never been done on an NHL player, the club's going, wait. We owe you X millions of dollars. If this thing doesn't work, we still got to pay you the money and we don't get the thing. So we're going to say, no, we don't want you to have that. It's all about the contract. And obviously with Colorado and Gabriel Landeskog, they were in it together because we didn't hear of any dispute about what he was having done.
Landeskog wanted to have his journey documented, and TNT and True TV on Clean Sheet has indeed had this journey of Landeskog coming back to play. A lot of the things that we don't see behind the scenes, the ups and downs, the toll that it takes on the family. And he admitted that his wife had to keep him in line a few times because if things aren't going well, you tend to withdraw. Maybe you're not as great around your kids as you should be, all in trying to make this comeback.
You know, he said something in an interview the other night that I heard that I thought was spot on. I haven't heard it described like this, but he said it was really hard to go back to family life and then go back to the robotic hockey life. And by robotic, I know exactly what he means. It's you do the same thing every day. You have your routine. You do it every day. You're with your teammates. They're all doing the same routine, and you're all doing it together like robots. And I thought that was a great term because life is not robotic when you're not playing anymore. You go back to normal life, which is really, really hard for people who have been in a robotic atmosphere like the professional team athletes.
Finally, he manages to get back into that robotic life of being a hockey player. 2-game conditioning stint with the Colorado Eagles. He comes back for game 3. I think perhaps the Avalanche were almost a little bit overamped at the beginning, weren't able to win the 3rd game. But boy, in game 4, in the 2-point effort that he had, and taking that drop pass from Brock Nelson and wiring that shot past Jake Ottinger and just watching how he was skating. He was so free-flowing, and you could not think that this was a guy that went under an incredible journey to get back to playing in the NHL. He just looked fabulous.
Yeah, and again, it harkens back to Mario Lemieux, him coming back and missing a whole year and then being the best player in the league again. As soon as he comes back, it was something that, you know, it's wonderful to see it, isn't it? It's such a good feeling that you get about another human being and that the trials and tribulations of life.
And what was better than seeing his kids at the glass with a big sign saying, "Daddy, we're so proud of you," before his comeback in game 3. And the Masterton Trophy for dedication and perseverance is awarded every year. It's in memory of Bob Masterton, the only player to have ever died as a result of injury suffered in an NHL game. He was playing for the North Stars against the Seals in January of 1968. Every NHL club has a nominee. But when you look at this story, you look at the work that this man has put in to get back to his career. And let's face it, he's 32. We don't know how he's going to respond after this rush of adrenaline, after this playoff ends, what the future holds. But to get to this point, there is no better definition for that trophy than Gabriel Landeskog.
You're right on. There couldn't be a better nominee than Gabriel Landeskog because of the things that he's been through and just the devotion he had to put into his craft to get himself back. So let's hope that everybody recognizes it the way we do and that he does win the Masterton Trophy.
That'll do it for our show today. Thanks to John Davidson, Senior Advisor for the Columbus Blue Jackets, for joining us. Thanks to UBS Financial Services, Inc. NHL Wraparound and UBS Financial Services, Inc. are not affiliated. UBS is a sponsor of 3 things you need to pay attention to. No other affiliation, relationship, or endorsement is made, suggested, intended, or should be implied or inferred between UBS and VNS Productions, LLC, or any of the individuals or businesses and or their respective products and services appearing in this program. Thank you to our listeners. As always, send questions or comments to nhlwraparound@gmail.com. And if you'd like to reach out to us individually, it's Neil at nhlwraparound.com or Vic at nhlwraparound.com. Remember that all of our podcasts are on all platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, and our complete catalog can be found on our website, nhlwraparound.com. So please subscribe. Tell friends, family, associates about us, and also check out some of our shorter clips on X at NHL Wraparound. Stanley Cup Date returns Tuesday with daily updates and insight on all 8 playoff series.
For those of you around the world that are listening to us that are not in Canada, not in the United States, please send us an email. Let us know where you are. Let us know how you got to like the NHL. Let us know how you find our podcast. And we can't wait to hear from you.
Couldn't say it any better.
Thanks for joining us on the NHL Wraparound podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all the NHL action.